The Danny Thomas Hour, usually seen at this time, will not be presented tonight so that we may bring you the following special program.
Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Always glad to welcome Mark Russell back to Word Balloon. I appreciate his slanted look at our world through his comics. Good to see you, man.
Oh, thanks, John. It's good to be here.
Congrats. I've read the wrap-up to Batman Dark Age. Issue 6 came out yesterday, and I'm excited, man. So people, if you want to... The trade is coming out in March, but meaty reads, man. Every issue. These were very big issues. You, Mike, and Laura Allred killing it on this book.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I felt like we probably had about 300 pages of story that we're trying to put into 240 pages. So you get your money's worth. It's pretty densely told, and I tried to leave as many words as I possibly could out, just so that I wouldn't be stepping on Mike's beautiful artwork and Laura's colors. And I wrote this intentionally thinking, well, Mike is going to want a splash page here, or Mike is going to want a splash. One of these panels is going to trigger his imagination, and he's going to turn one of them into a splash page. So I intentionally sort of underwrote the art, just knowing that Mike was going to take the ball and run with it at some point.
Now, you also did Superman Space Age with Mike. Was Mike, were you guys put together for this? Did you want Mike from the start and then pitch DC? How did the two of you get together on this?
Yeah, no, it's funny because when it got greenlit, my editor, Brittany Holzer, told me to make a list of artists I would want to be on this project. And she said, don't try to overthink it. Don't try to gamesmanship me. Just put a bucket list, like anybody in the world that you want to do this, put them on. And she said, I'll do the same, and then we'll compare lists. And Mike was the only artist on both our lists. And so we thought, well, call him first. And which, I didn't expect him to say yes, because I thought, he'll maybe want to do some covers for it, but he won't act. But she called him, and right off the bat, he said yes. And it felt like at that moment, this was like fate, that I knew then we were probably going to have a really good series on our hands.
And now 2 series. I mean, this is great because Superman Dark Age, mostly, and correct me Space Age, that's, 50s, really the beginnings of the American Space Age and everything. And then, perhaps a what if kind of thing if Superman he was active back then, but he was clunking gangsters' heads. He wasn't really doing much cosmic stuff on George Reeves' show or on the in the comics and stuff. So am I right? It started in the 50s?
Yeah, it starts in the 50s when he's a child, and it goes to 1985 with the Crisis on Infinite Earths. And it's called Space Age really because it's about sort of the 2 overriding themes of the Space Age, which is the hope of the future and technology, and also the fear of the future and technology. The idea that you could wake up tomorrow morning and be dead in a nuclear holocaust, or you could wake up tomorrow morning and they will be putting people on the moon. And you don't know which one you're going to get. You might get both, but it's sort of about that, about the yin and yang of the Space Age, about how it was both a time of incredible potential and also a time of incredible peril.
So then, on Batman: The Dark Age, you're playing with some of the same time periods. But again, a very different, another alternate history, if you will.
Yeah, it dovetails with Space Age, but it takes place in a slightly different universe, and that they do sort of conjoin at one point, but it takes place in a slightly different universe, and it's from a very different perspective, because Superman is very much about the global issues and about saving humanity. He's a big fan of the human race, and he feels like the human race saved him, and now he wants to return the favor. Batman's perspective is incredibly different. He feels like he should be focused on Gotham. To him, justice is local. I think a big difference is that Superman was born into an enormous calamity, the destruction of Krypton and him being sent out into the unknown. But his childhood was marked by the kindness and generosity of others, him being taken in by Ma and Pa Kent, getting friends and like finding people who loved him and like supported him. Bruce Wayne's story is almost the diametric opposite. It's like he was born into this loving family, a billionaire, but his childhood was marked by the destruction of all of that, by his parents being murdered, about him being forced to sort of go into hiding and worry about people who are going to kill him, and this is very much about what the sort of opposite upbringing or the opposite sort of origin to Superman would do to a person, and how you could still be a good person with all of these swords of Damocles hanging over your head.
And am I right too? Because you really get into so many characters that will be familiar to us, but in a lot of ways, because of the divergence of the alternate universe and stuff, things play out differently, including Bruce's parents, which really, I love what you did with Thomas and Martha in particular.
Yeah, they're very big characters of the story, even though they die at the beginning of issue one. They loom super large, like they do in the life of Bruce Wayne and anything in any Batman series. That the primordial forces in his life, and really the rest of Bruce Wayne's life and Batman's life is spent trying to honor the promise of his parents, spent trying to like make their vision come true for Gotham.
Well, I don't want to necessarily spoil for people if they haven't been reading. I know it's been 6 issues, but I do want people, if you want to talk about specifics, that's great. There are surprises of villains that show up. One that I don't think is that much of a spoiler, because we don't know how, you won't know what he does until you read the story, and that's Pariah from the original Crisis. And yeah, and I think you give him a lot of agency and a very interesting backstory in this universe and how he's operating here.
Pariah is sort of the common thread both in this story and in Superman Space Age, because he's the one guy who from the beginning knows that the universe is going to come to an end. And what I wanted to do, and if they let us do, say, like 10 of these Ages books, this would play out, but in each one, he tries something different. So, like in Superman Space Age, he tries to warn Superman. He tries to like warn Superman that the end of the universe is coming, so that at least the most powerful guy on the planet knows and maybe can do something about it, although he's not terribly optimistic about his odds. And then in Batman Dark Age, his philosophy is kind of like, well, it's all going to come to an end, so I'll just become enormously rich in the meantime, because he knows everything that's going to happen. So he just becomes an investment guru and cleans up in the market. So if I were to keep writing these, there would be like some universes where he just decides to like start a cult, or some in which he goes on vacation, or tries to make a deal with Brainiac or something.
Do you think Mike would be up for continuing the series? Are you prepared to? Yeah, I mean, really, like, again, I don't want to diminish anybody in this equation, including Laura, by the way, who did an excellent job on colors. It's gorgeous. Yeah, it's outstanding, man, truly. But yeah, so I don't know. Moving forward, would it have to be you and Mike, or how do you?
Yeah.
I mean, again,
I don't think I would want to do it with other people, because it feels so much like a joint venture between me and the Allreds. It wouldn't be the same. I mean, I'd be open to doing another Batman or Superman comic with someone else, but it wouldn't be of the Age series. But I will say we are already approved to do a third one, a Wonder Woman story. So get at least one more of these books out of us. So
outstanding. Oh, that's
really
great. And I kind of figured the Trinity had to be covered. So
You would
that's
think
good to
so.
hear.
It feels a little incomplete if you don't have a Wonder Woman, especially because we don't really know what happens to this sort of alternate universe yet. And so that story will be told in the third book, the Wonder Woman book.
Interesting. No, it's really great, man. And there are a lot of the Justice League is in there. There are a lot of Batman characters in there, and again, their motivations and where they end up. It's very very interesting. So I love it. Caesar of Rome says, "I've been loving your current X Factor book. It's my second favorite X-Men ongoing behind Ultimate." You'll forgive me, Mark. I was just asking you off the air.
Hail Caesar. Yes, thank you very much, Caesar of
Yes.
Rome.
So tell me what's happening in X Factor.
Well, X Factor is telling the story, as it always does, of like a crack sort of assault team, but it takes place after the fall of Krakoa, so it's very much like there's a talent hunt for all the nations of the Earth to sort of recruit the mutants who are no longer in Krakoa or who no longer have a homeland. The nations of the Earth are saying, well, you should come join our military squads. And X Factor tells the story of the American one, and what America has to offer. The way they sort of recruit mutants to join the American team is they offer to put them on social media. It's not TikTok in the Marvel universe; it's Click Clock. They want them to make like Click Clock videos of their raids and their exploits, so that they can make a little money from the viewership. But it really puts them at cross purposes because they it's more interesting when you die. It's more interesting. It gets more likes when somebody gets burned to death than when everybody gets home safely. So it really kind of puts, like, I think most of America, the economic incentives are at odds with your life and well-being.
Yeah, your moral compass. Gee,
Yeah.
something that maybe the American public hasn't had to wrestle with lately.
Yeah,
Interesting.
no.
Interesting.
I hope people find some relevance in this really bizarre alternate universe.
Well, you can't help yourself, man, because also, and again, I don't want to necessarily spoil, and it is a different story, but there are echoes, I think, of even Joker Part Deux, Folie de Part Deux, whatever. I don't know if you saw it. I saw it.
Yeah,
I liked it actually.
Yeah, I
Did you?
thought that it was a big swing and mostly worked, and I feel like it was about as wild or about as daring a sort of approach to a Joker sequel that you could possibly do. It didn't work on every level for me, but I love an ambitious movie, and I felt like that's what it was.
Well, I did too, and I honestly feel it's a continuation of the first movie, for better or for worse. And it's not for everybody. And I keep warning people. I'm like, listen, if you're curious, this is a bummer. I think when as a kid, when I saw The Wall, the Pink Floyd movie, and it's like, well, there goes a Friday night, and I certainly don't feel good about the start of my weekend right now.
Yeah.
I had that vibe with Joker too. But it's a compelling movie if you're willing to give into the basics of it. And I'm like, all right. And I really thought everybody in it acted the hell out of it, including Brendan Gleeson and Kathleen Kennedy, I believe, plays his isn't it Kathleen Kennedy who plays his lawyer, I think? She's in that early Seinfeld where she likes the Dockers commercial, and Jerry, I can't believe you like the Dockers commercial.
I don't remember who.
And she painted the Kramer, the painting of Kramer and everything. But anyway, Bill Smitrovich is the judge. I mean, it's top, up and down, amazing cast.
Yeah, amazing cast, and I think it tries to it does something unique that I don't think I've seen before, where it tries to make an art house film set in the DC universe, which I'm glad someone at least tried it.
I'm with you, man. I absolutely, and really, there's a couple allusions to the Wayne family, but there is no Batman, and I'm okay with that. It's and truly, again, bringing it back to X Factor and the fact that the government wants to use social media and stuff. That was the thing about Joker too. I thought, despite the fact that the crowd wanted him to be this big kind of new, scary figure, it's like, no, this isn't the guy that we see in the Batman universe. This is
one of the most daring things they did in the first movie was they made Bruce Wayne a boy. So there's like a huge age difference between the
Yes.
Joker and Bruce Wayne. If they ever do, you were thinking if they ever do get to cross swords, the Joker will be an old man by the time Batman comes around, which I thought was a really daring choice. And so, of course, because this movie happens immediate, like maybe a year after the events of the first
I
movie.
think weeks after, but it could be a year, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah, or at most a year, yeah, but
Yeah.
probably even less than that. It's like Batman's in grade school. He's not going to show up.
No, I'm like I said, I'm kind of glad. And Gaga was great. I mean, I
Yeah.
really thought a different sort of Harley Quinn. That's totally fine. And I thought the music, the way they used music, worked for me. I don't know how you felt about the music in the movie.
Yeah, no, I thought the music was great, and I also feel like what I really liked about it is that it was very thematically focused. The themes of them being both him and Harley Quinn and the justice system all being kind of frauds, but also frauds that sort of can lose themselves into the illusions they've created, and that sort of the illusions becoming more important than trying to live up to this fake, or trying to embrace who you really are. That to me was like so well navigated throughout all the characters and every second of the film that it really felt like a really cohesive movie, even though it was very light on plot.
Yes, I agree. No, and absolutely, you're right about that. And like you said, man, no, it's a really expensive art house movie, and it's so funny because some people are like, well, it's him, it's Todd Phillips shitting on the nerds, and I'm like, I really don't think that was his intent. I just think he's continuing the first story that was a massive hit. So I'm sure Warner Bros. Like, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. And
I think if anything, it was like a vote of confidence. It's like, yes. I trust the audience to be smart enough to get this, or, maybe not always well-placed trust, but but I admire him, one, for taking chances that a potentially career-ruining chance like this was, and also for giving the audience enough credit to think that they could understand or at least appreciate something that wasn't like something they've seen 100 times already.
Yeah. Something easy. And even shades like Gotham, what they did with the Joker was very different, but it's like, it's still the Joker, I mean, whatever at its core. And this Joker isn't. And I like that about it. So no, I appreciate the talk, Mark, because truly I've been pulling teeth trying to find someone to talk about it.
Someone else liked it.
Well, no, honestly, that's what I was
saying. Judging Sodom and Gomorrah. If you could find 10 good men. If you can find 10 people who like this movie, I will spare.
But no, honestly, I wasn't looking for an echo. But again, you brought up great points. But even like I'm like, oh, I'll be happy to disagree with somebody. And so many creators like, I don't even want to get into it, man. And I'm like, all right, no problem. It's fine. Either they were bummed by the experience or whatever. And I'm like, hey, it's cool. It's fine. I'll find someone to talk to. So you and Haspiel have been the two that I've been able to talk to about it.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I understand. There's really no wrong way to enjoy a comic book or to enjoy a movie, and if that's not your bag, that's fine. I don't think that you're an idiot for not liking a movie that I liked. But
not at all.
But I do think that there needs to be new experiences in films. There needs to be types of films that have not been made before. And so even if I don't enjoy a movie, I will appreciate it if I think it's trying to do that, if it's trying to give me something I haven't had before. It's like flavors of ice cream in the Baskin Robbins. It's like you would never go to Baskin Robbins if it was all just like, Rocky Road. Even if you don't like pistachio or you don't like, spumoni or whatever, it's good that they're there because that's what makes an ice cream parlor worth visiting.
Amen. Absolutely, man. And no, I truly, I've been kind of dancing around that as well when I think about where movie theaters now are and the price of tickets. I don't even know in Portland, what's the average first release price?
If you're going like in the evening, I think it's about $16 now.
Yeah. It's like 18 here in Chicago.
Yeah, there's all kinds of weird upcharges, like if it's obviously if it's an IMAX or a 3D or
4D or whatever they call it, the 4X, where it's like an amusement park ride. Have you done that at all? Or are you aware of
I've done that. It didn't really enhance my experience, I don't think.
I saw the Flash that way. And honestly, I had sweatpants on. My wallet was flung out of my sweatpants and like several feet from my seat. Thank God I found it. It was I'm just like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I saw Godzilla -1 in that
Oh
format,
my.
which I was kind of looking forward to, but it didn't really utilize the format at all because the directors weren't filming the movie with this weird format in mind. They just are dumping it onto this film that they just shot, thinking, well, this would be in a normal 2D, regular screen theater.
Sure. Absolutely. Chad Burnett saying hello and that he loved
Hey,
our
Chad.
Very cool.
Oh, thank you.
That's
Thanks,
excellent. Very good. Getting back to X Factor, who's in your lineup?
Well, I've got some old characters you might remember. Havoc, aka Alex Summers. I've got Pyro. I've got Angel, although he's in and out of the hospital, sort of like a football player.
Okay.
And
Poor Warren.
got Cecilia Reyes, and then some new ones that they let me create for the team. I've got the youngest member of the team. His name is Zyber, and he's like 17, and he emits like an electromagnetic pulse that takes out all of their opponents' electronics. And then the oldest member of the team is like an 87-year-old woman called Granny Smite, and her power is that she cannot die. She's immortal, which is a problem if you're an 87-year-old. So she joined the team specifically to find a way to die. She has no problem just marching out into no man's land and taking all the fire because she's hoping one of these bullets works. And let's see, who else do I got? Forget Me Not, who I ironically I just forgot is on the team. And who am I leaving out? Frenzy. Frenzy's on the team.
Very cool, man. All right, I'm going to catch up. When did it debut?
We're on issue 6 right now.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I'm on issue 6. I've just did the lettering for issue 6, but I think issue 4 just came out.
Okay, cool. Caesar says he loves Smite.
Yes, thank you.
That's excellent. Very cool.
And I want to do more with her and Zyber. Write more about them being like the oldest character who cannot die, and then the youngest character who's afraid that if he does this electromagnetic pulse too many times, he's going to die, because it's like every time he does this little electromagnetic pulse, it's like getting a million X-rays. So yeah, so he doesn't know how many of these he's actually got before it kills him.
Interesting. That's cool. Is Havoc the team leader?
Yeah. Angel starts out as a team leader. He gets injured, so then Havoc sort of fills the void and becomes team leader. But they sort of toggle back and forth.
Okay. That's cool. No, that's great. Hey, man, you do great teams. You do great multi-character books. And we'll get to my bad in a second. But even One Star Squadron, and I loved all the characters you had.
I think that was maybe one of the best things I've ever written, and I don't think anyone read it, but it's like, but I feel very proud of it still.
I did, Mark, and I loved it. No, man, absolutely. It was it was a lot of fun, and again, that's why My Bad is a good time too.
Yeah, I think it's what I really like about doing My Bad. Even despite, other than the fact that it's a collaboration, which I'm really enjoying, but in addition to that, it's a chance to write about superheroes in a way that the big two isn't always really eager to have you do. So, it telling the kind of, in fact, a lot of the stories I write for the Chandelier were originally Batman pitches where DC said, not in a million years, we will never do this Batman story.
Have you played in the Wrong Earth world with Tom and Jamal as well?
Yeah. I did a one shot where both the Dragonfly and Dragonfly Man, their alter ego, I forget his name, but the Bruce Wayne version of both those characters in the two universes both decide to build like a football stadium, and even though one of them's good and one of them's evil, it pretty much goes about the same for each of them in each of the universes, because building a football stadium has just got a lot of problematic things that go into it.
Hey, Cliff on Comics joins me in saying how much he loves One Star Squadron, but X Factor has been a very good and interesting read. So there
thank
you go.
Yeah, and
Very
thanks for reading that One Star Squadron. I think all the everyone who read One Star Squadron is here in this podcast. So thank you all.
Well, hell, let's hope a few more did.
Yeah.
And but again, it's great that Ahoy gives you that platform. I mean, they're truly, man. I think a lot of your stuff as well, Billionaire Island, and of course, Second Coming.
Yeah, Hoy's been great at just letting me write about the things that I want to write about and not worrying too much about whether or not they're commercial or whether or not they can ever franchise it, or whether Disney's going to want to make a movie based upon one of these, which they probably will never will. But
No, but there is adult animation, and honestly, and I know that they've played other, Hulu and the like. I mean, I forget the name of Seth Meyers' show that I want to say Judd Winnick even worked on. That was a superhero parody. I mean, so it's familiar territory for adult animation.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could make a case like something like The Boys, and
Sure.
like Invincible, the animated show version of Invincible.
Yeah,
really show that there is like a market for this sort of thing. That there is like sort of room for a revisionist approach to superheroes, and it's room to grow.
that's cool. Here, Loopy chiming in. I'm excited for more Second Coming.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're working on the 4th season of Second Coming right now. I'm just about done writing it, and they're just finishing the art on the first issue. So probably later in 2025.
That's great. Back to My Bad. Yeah, you, Pete Krause, and forgive me, your third guy.
Bryce Ingman.
Yes.
Bryce Ingman writes half. He writes the stories about Emperor King and Acid Chimp, and I write the stories that revolve around Chandelier.
The Chandelier, indeed. No, very good stuff, man. No, that's great. So that was that issue 5 that came out back in a couple weeks ago?
Oh, it was issue 5
My Bad?
of the 3rd volume. Yeah.
Yes.
So right.
So that's cool.
And the trade's coming out soon, and hopefully we'll get to do more. Don't know yet, but I'm very happy with it.
That's
it's
great.
Probably
man.
the one that's the most fun to write because it is such a fun collaboration, and also there are no walls of decency or there's no walls of it's complete id. It does. There's nothing that really. Oh, it's totally wrong for My Bad. It's a casserole of all the other ideas that I couldn't get away with elsewhere.
It would seem that you could pitch potentially a Great Lakes Avengers kind of story, or even a Legion of Substitute Heroes story. As far as DC
well, there
goes.
is in My Bad. There's what they call the League of Regional Heroes, and they're all like sort of state or a county.
Yes,
superheroes.
Captain Ohio.
Yeah, Captain Ohio, or the Michigander. But they once a year they have a convention, and one of them is chosen to be elevated to national hero status. And it's a big honor. It's like winning the Oscars if you're a regional superhero.
Very again reminiscent of The Boys too, but with a more of a happy
regional flavor. Yeah.
That's great, man. No, that's
there's the lobsterman from Maine. He's got lobster claws for hands.
Very good. No, that's terrific, man. And again, there hasn't been an Ahoy book that I haven't liked on some level. So
they're all real fun, and and they're goofy, and what I really like about them is that they're completely unexpected. I feel like most publishers are kind of a brand, and you sort of know what you're getting, and you know roughly what this comic will be like based upon the other comics this company has published. Not so much with Ahoy. I mean, I guess their brand is that it's funny and irreverent, but these stories are all so different, and the tonality and the flavors they present are so different that each time you get one, you never really know what it is. You have to like take them at face value. You have to take each Ahoy title on its own. You can't really just assume that because you've read these other ones, you're going to know what this one you're getting with this one, which I think is a good thing.
I'm with you, man. Absolutely. No, they're a really fun and innovative publisher, and God, especially for those of us. And it reminds me, I got to get Tom Pyre back on and Jamal to talk about the new Wrong Earth stuff that's happening. But also, just like as an older reader, I remember the Gold Key Boris Karloff Tales of Terror, which I would assume started maybe as a thriller, his old early '60s anthology show. But they also did the Twilight Zone and stuff. And they got Edgar Allan Poe's Snifter of Terror or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic, So I mean, not only do they play with superhero stuff, and then they get into just really like Billionaire Island and stuff. I mean, that's just pop culture, just to look at our world in a very extreme way and a funny way,
Yeah, it feels a little less funny by the day to me. It feels a little more.
Yeah, I know, man. Well, I hope
like a dirge at a funeral.
I know. Well, I hope the negative vibes that many of us are feeling. I shouldn't say we're all feeling, but many of us are feeling doesn't keep us from being creative, and especially you. We want more funny, man. So don't get too bummed out.
I feel like for me, I don't know about for you or anybody who reads this stuff, but for me, anyway, it feels therapeutic. Like it helps me expunge sort of the stress and worry from my soul.
Yeah. Understood. Hall Comics says to Cliff, but also he loves the Flintstones that you did, Prez, and X Factor's been great. Love your work, Mark. Yeah, man.
Hey. Thanks, Cliff.
Yeah, we've talked about your Flintstone stuff in the past, and you did Snagglepuss as well, right?
Yeah, that was my follow-up to Flintstones. I really missed being able to do the old Hanna-Barbera stuff because, again, it was sort of like DC was running them, but because you weren't writing Superman or Batman, you really could take a lot more chances with the Hanna-Barbera characters because they kind of saw them as a rented car. So it's like, yeah, go ahead. Go nuts, young man.
Yeah, but DC thought that way. But am I right that maybe Hanna-Barbera was kind of like, hey, man, what'd you do to our Datsun? My God, look at all the dents.
At first, I think, when they got the first issue of the Flintstones, I think the general reaction was, what the hell is this? And in fact, I got like an email with like 100 notes. It's like, can't name a deity. You can't, do this. Fred's got to say yabba dabba doo once an issue. And so, and to their credit, DC said, don't worry about any of that stuff. Just keep writing what you're writing, and we'll take the feedback from Hanna-Barbera. We'll let you know if we think it's something you should be concerned about. But other than that, just go with God.
Well, I'm glad you were protective, truly, because
it was golden. I had no idea because at the time I was very brand new. I was new to comics. That was like my second comic book, so I just imagined that this is the way the industry works. It's like, oh, you get paired with a really great artist all the time. The editors and the publisher really look out for you. And you get a good page rate. I just thought, well, this is a good industry, and I didn't know how lucky I was, how much. It's like I was a trust fund kid. I didn't realize it until soon thereafter.
I know. Steve Pugh, right, was your artist on Flintstones?
Yeah, I was, especially in those early years. I was so lucky with artists because nobody knew who I was. I was brand new to comics, and yet I was getting paired with like Ben Caldwell and Steve Pugh, and I had Bill Sienkiewicz do a cover for the. It's just bizarre. I had no idea what how lucky I was to have all these artists sort of like willing to sort of contribute to. But now I do. Now I've been through enough of the desert to understand what an oasis looks like.
Hall says I tell people to go back to the sex caves all the time. Flintstones seriously is a great social commentary. Yeah, man. And I'll even admit, at first I didn't read it because I'm like, well, that's off model, and I'm like, that doesn't look like Hanna-Barbera
reaction. I think that was the sort of consensus was that was, oh, good, someone's here to ruin my childhood. I think. It's sort of like, I don't blame people too for being put off by it. Like I feel like in a lot of ways it's like if you pick up something you expect to taste like chocolate and it tastes like barbecue sauce, it can be the best barbecue sauce in the world, but if you're expecting chocolate, it tastes gross. And I feel like it took me 3 or 4 issues for people to find the people who wanted the barbecue sauce, find the people who were looking for that flavor.
Also, though, I think initially I was fearful that it was going to be kind of like the John Goodman movies, which, sorry, kids,
That would
didn't
have
like
been a nightmare. No.
Didn't like it. And I'm like, oh, I don't want this.
No,
My
I think the
God.
one thing I really wanted to avoid, and I think mission accomplished, was to be sort of a tasteful, but yet purely forgettable homage to the original Flintstones. I think that would have been pointless, and it was the last thing in the world I was interested in writing.
I understand. Here, Hall agrees with me. John, I said the same thing. Luckily, I had a friend who turned me onto it, and so much of Mark's work. No, I understand, man. And again, I think the scene that I saw when I flipped through it that kind of hooked me, and I've told you this before, was the water buffaloes treated like the VFW, and that they're haunted by the various cave wars that they had. And I love that. I'm like, all right, now we're in interesting territory. This is good.
Part of what I wanted to do is to take the things that everyone remembers from the Flintstones and make them more relevant. So they had the water buffalo in the Flintstones cartoon was like a gentleman's club, or sort of like the Knights of Columbus or whatever.
Right.
And the Rotaries, which who's a member of the Rotary or whatever now? Who does these clubs now? Nobody. But what is relevant to the 21st century is people coming back from wars with traumatic experiences, and wars that they did not benefit from, but they are paying the cost for. And so that's what I wanted to turn the water buffaloes into.
Well, you succeeded. I thought it was terrific. Let's see here. I just want to make sure, because some people are just saying hi to each other, which is great. Legion of Comics. And I'm assuming you're talking about Dark Age, Legion, that you just read the final issue last night. Solid story. Loved the little twist at the end.
Oh, good. And thank you for not spelling out what the twist is.
Yes.
I appreciate
Well, that's
that.
the thing, everybody. I want you to, enjoy the conversation, but by the same token, if you're not caught up, it's a great story, and it really does have some interesting surprises to it.
I'm okay with trade waiters. If you want to wait for the whole book to come out, that's fine. But if you're afraid of it being spoiled, it's in stores now.
There you go. And also, I love what you and Allred have been doing at DC. But go back to Life Story that you did with Fantastic Four and Spider-Man at Marvel, and also your Future State work, where I think you're really kind of making a name for yourself as the alternate universe guy in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of the niche I've carved out for myself, in part because I am not terribly knowledgeable. So it's like I'm not somebody who has a Talmudic knowledge of the DC or Marvel universe. So they don't have to worry about me screwing that up if they have me write Elseworlds. But also, I think this is just more interesting to me to write something that is sort of self-contained, and where I'm not just trying to gravel fill everybody's understanding or have characters show up you haven't seen in a while for no good reason other than to make this issue collectible. That doesn't really appeal to me as a writer. I just want to tell a story, and tell a story that is meaningful to me, using these characters that are already meaningful to you, and hopefully use the fact that you already have equity in these characters that you know and love to make the things that I know and love sort of translate. And that's really what I like doing as a writer in comics. So I hope it shows on the page, and I think that's why I gravitate towards those types of gigs.
Understood. I'm going to let Mark answer this question, although he's already said it to Legion of Comics. Any plans for the next DC Age book?
Yes. In fact, the third in the series, Wonder Woman Golden Age, has just been approved. So you heard it here first.
Oh, thank you for the first here.
You got a scoop. Great. Yes.
I'll take it. Thank you, man. That's always kind. Now watch. Clark Bull's going to go, hey, man, what the hell?
Yeah, I know. I probably have spoken out of turn because it's DC hasn't done their announcement yet.
It's our secret, everybody. Don't tell.
I'll deny it all. I'll say I never told them I never said.
All right, they're all excited for it, man. So that's great to hear. And also, Hall, wanted to know, did you have more ideas for Prez? The '70s series is a favorite of mine because it's so weird, but your take on it was so good and its own thing. Absolutely, in both accounts.
Thank you. Yeah, I did. I had plotted out like 12 issues. I was expecting it to go 12 issues long. It canceled after 6, which at the time I didn't really understand that could happen because I'd never written a comic book before. It was my first comic book. So when they told me 12 issues, I thought, well, I'll just plan the plot for 12 issues. I didn't even bother thinking in terms of like having a story arc end at 5 or 6 issues like I do now. I do now, anticipating the inevitable cancellation. But back then I just thought, well, I'll write a 12 issue, I'll outline a 12 issue story arc. And then it got canceled in the middle. And I kind of felt like, well, I only got to, show half the movie that I made. It's weird because my experience before that was writing books, and nobody ever, canceled one of my books when I was halfway through writing it.
Yeah. No, I can appreciate that. That sucks, man. And it's, yeah.
I was very unhappy with it at the time. I resigned myself to it, like, well, consider this a learning experience. But in a way, it's had a very happy ending because those first 6 issues have gotten, the condensed comics series. They're doing a deluxe version of Prez, which is mind-boggling to me because it's like I feel like I was a very different and much, frankly, worse writer than when I was doing Prez. And if to see that, and nobody read it. Again, it was kind of like, they would sell like maybe 2 or 3 copies at a shop, and they would, and if it just sold those, they wouldn't order anymore because they figured they dodged a bullet. They got lucky and sold all 3 copies of Prez. So it didn't sell hardly anything. Didn't have a lot of readers. So the fact that it sort of found this audience 10 years later is really meaningful to me.
That's great, man. And truly, that was the thing about, that was after New 52? Was that like DC All
New?
Yeah,
it was DCU. I think was officially the line.
Yes.
DC YOU.
Yes. And truly, your Prez and Heath Corson did a great Jimmy Olsen with Bizarro Road Trip, and there were just interesting ideas. And it's I'm glad at least they got greenlit to the extent that they did. And it's too bad that your story was, stopped midway through.
Yeah, it was an exciting line because I think a lot of what they were doing with the DCU was like off-kilter stories about characters in a way that you had never really seen them before, and also kind of like paying a lot of attention to marginal characters, like characters who were not just like, the Trinity, sort of side characters getting their own due, which I always, as you might have told. Might be able to tell from my career, I really like that. I really like writing, Red Tornado, or or Pariah.
Absolutely, man. Hall Comics says nobody read it is my freaking jam. Prez is a hidden gem. Glad people are getting into it. When did they release this condensed trade version?
About a year ago, not quite a year ago, and now it's getting a deluxe treatment. And
great!
I think I heard that it's going to second printing the condensed comic, but they might have been talking about a better selling comic.
And then staying with the format question, Legion of Comics wanted to know: did you like the format of Space Age or Dark Age better? As a reader, I really like the Space Age 3. Larger format issues approach. Sure, single floppies have their benefits too, though.
Yeah, if you let me choose, I would definitely choose the Space Age format. One, because I think people are more likely to stay for 3 issues than they are for 6, stick with the story. And 2, it's just nice not having to think in terms of 40-page increments. Be able to think in terms of an 80-page increment. This is Act 1, that's Act 2. It just works better, I think, for my brain, a brain that was trained sort of on classical story theory to work in that sort of 3-act structure, and not having to come up with these sort of good ending points in the middle of the acts. Although I will say the benefit of doing Batman in 6 issues was that it kept me very on point. It kept me very focused on moving the plot forward. And I feel like when I read it now, or when I look at it, it feels tighter to me than the Superman story for that reason, because I knew I had to like have a good ending point every 40 pages. That, and I think I also understood better how to write for Mike Allred in Batman, which is like, don't overcrowd the page with panels, just write what you're going to write in a minimum of panels, because Mike is just going to take one and turn into the 2-page spread at some point. So you need to account for that.
That's great. Well, again, I love both versions, but has the format for Wonder Woman Golden Age been decided?
Yeah, it's going to be the same format as the Batman. So 6 issues.
Okay. Okay. Well, and again, listen, they crunch the numbers. They know what works best as far as sales and things. So it'll be, I can appreciate that. And no, that's great. Hey, listen, Wonder Woman's having a hell of a time right now between.
It's a great moment to be writing Wonder Woman between, what Tom King is doing and Kelly Thompson's doing. I'm honored to be allowed on that swing set.
That's great. Legion, don't worry. Mike Allred is involved in Volume 3, Wonder Woman's Golden Age. I just wanted to let you know that because it was something we already covered. But no, that's terrific, man. And also, what I really liked about Dark Age, and we got a bit of it as well in Superman, but just where everybody is, and Bruce's involvement in various things that happened in the 60s, I think is really interesting, and again, kind of deepens his character, and just his life experiences are vastly different than, despite losing his parents in both universes.
To me, it kind of seemed like what I was kind of thinking about was like, well, what would if Bruce Wayne lived in our world? How would his life have what would have been the turning points of his life? And it seemed kind of weird to me that somebody would come of age in like the late 60s and learn all this combat, would never have been in Vietnam. So I'll definitely want him to go to Vietnam and like serve in like this Green Berets unit behind the lines, because to me it seems much more likely a place for him to learn these sort of elite combat skills than like finding a group of ninjas in Nepal or something.
But again, that's what's exciting about it, man. There are these twists and turns that make sense in a real world way, also make sense from the divergence of what we know. And that's exciting because it's all new to us. Like, oh my God, look at this.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, if you just think about what makes common sense, it makes it kind of new and interesting, because so much of these origin stories didn't make a lot of sense, or you have these questions that sort of nag at you as a reader. It's like, well, what was Bruce Wayne doing going to a movie with his parents at like 9:00 at night, on a school night? What was he doing? So in my version, he's like, he lives precisely because he doesn't go to the movies with his parents, because the plan was for them to kill all three, so there would be no heir to the Wayne fortune, and it would go to the board of directors. But because he wasn't there unexpectedly, there was an heir, and that puts a target on his back from the age of 7.
And it makes for a very interesting story. No, I love it, man. I think that's terrific. And if people have more questions about Dark Age, I'm willing to take them. I'm also willing to again reach back. Flintstones, Snagglepuss, Life Stories, Fantastic Four, or Spider-Man, whatever you want to talk about. But I also want to acknowledge a couple other Marvel things that you've done recently, and they're short, but they were great. In Blood Hunters, I really liked your Hawkeye story, taking on the vampires, and the new status quo of that event.
That was one of my favorite one-shots I've ever written, just because it was just fun and wacky. And also I got to work with Bob Quinn, who is also, as fate would have it, doing the art for X Factor now. But I feel like in a lot of ways that was sort of our audition for X Factor, these sort of like Marvel one-shots we did. Like,
that's excellent. No, that's really cool. I'm sorry that, like I said, I'm going to have to catch up on X Factor for our next conversation. But also, you had a great story in Darth Maul, Black, White, and Red, which I think is great.
Thank you. Yeah, I like that. I like writing that format a lot, where it's just 30 pages. It tells a self-contained story.
That's great. Legion of Comics wants to know, will there be any conventions you're planning on hitting either at the end of this year or next year?
I am trying to do is more conventions next year than I did this year, and I would love to be at Heroes Con. I have no plans to go to Heroes Con yet. But if they invited me, I would definitely go. But so far, I'm doing Portland Fan Expo. I'm doing New Orleans Fan Expo in January, and I've committed to Spring Into Comics in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I think that's in March.
Okay, cool. I gotta talk to Mitch, and we gotta get you out to Terrificon in Connecticut.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, no, I've heard great things about Terrificon.
It's a good show. It really is, and I always tell people, not just because I'm involved. I'm telling you, it's a good show, and thankfully people come back and go, "Hey, man, you were right." And it's like, okay, cool. I'm glad to hear that, man. Yeah. That's terrific.
No, it's one of those conventions that creators talk about, like when that when you're exchanging scuttlebutt in like the green rooms at conventions. People say, "Oh, what conventions have you been to this year that you really liked?" And Terrificon's one that always comes up.
That's great to hear. Caesar wants to know, was John Ostrander's Suicide Squad an influence on X Factor? For your book really reminds me of that series.
No, in fact, I've never read that. But you're not the first person to make that comment. People like say, "Oh, this reminds me of John Ostrander." But so yeah, I guess thanks for. I'm happy to be. I guess I should say I'm happy to be in that company.
That's great, man. No, that was really one of the breakout '80s comics that. That with the Question and what Tim Truman was doing with Hawk World and stuff, Hawkman. Yeah, that was great stuff and very groundbreaking at the time. I love talking to John. John's one of my favorites of guys that are older than me.
Yeah.
No,
these people who are working in the 80s and 90s are so fun to talk to because they're like old salts. They've
sure.
seen it all and done it all. I did a comic with Kirk Busiek, and he was telling me like he's the reason why I don't use any punctuation and sound effects now. He said it doesn't need to be punctuated; it's just a sound. It's not like you're shouting. And they thought that makes so much sense. And I haven't used like an exclamation point or any sort of punctuating with the sound effect since then.
That's interesting. That's fantastic, man. That's a good tip. I love it. I had Jurgens on last night, and earlier last week I had
Dan's
Elliot
great too.
Oh, I love Dan. Dan is great, and I'm really loving what he's been doing with Batman, with the Batman First Night stuff.
That's a beautiful book too. I mean, just the way they've sort of captured that the ambience of the 30s stuff.
Very cool.
Feels very noirish, which I love.
Yes, and you'll forgive me, everybody. It's getting to the point where I don't want Mark to repeat himself anymore, so I will answer various questions.
That's okay. But, I'm sure I've already repeated myself several times just because I forget what I said 5 minutes before.
Are there any other new books? Because I know you've done great work at a lot of other like AWA and other publishers and stuff. You got anything else that we haven't covered yet?
Well, the thing that I'm very proud of and most eager to talk about is that the collected edition of Traveling to Mars is finally coming out this month. So we will get Traveling to Mars as a book in the next week or two.
Oh, great. And remind me which publisher that is, Mark.
That's Ablaze.
Okay, very cool. Excellent. Well, geez, I mean, I think that's a good excuse to have you come back and talk about the full story and everything of that. Tease people if they miss the issues, to tease people what the trade's about.
Okay, it's about the first man mission to Mars, and the guy they send is somebody who's terminally ill, because that way they don't have to bring him back. And he's sent on a one-way mission to claim all this mineral wealth that they had discovered on the planet Mars. But the story is really more about his sort of personal regret and his life and the things he felt he left undone on Earth before he went. And I don't want to get too much in it because there's some twists and turns, but it's very at once personal, and yet I think it works also as science fiction.
Mark, I'm really glad you reminded me what it's about, because as you were describing your 87-year-old X Factor team member, I was thinking of that story, because I'm like, wait a minute, I know someone told me about an astronaut who, is a senior. And maybe I'm imprinting.
Although the astronaut, my story is he's like in his 40s. He's got.
Oh, okay. Well, then then I'm conflating your story, that story, with another one that I heard
It
where
could very
people
well be
sending,
another
like,
one where
seniors
old
in
people sending old people into space. Yes, I'm sure that's coming. I'm sure it won't be science fiction for long.
Probably true. I'd like to
Yeah.
announce for my Space Force.
Yeah,
we're
we're emptied the prisons. They have all volunteered now to.
Buzz Aldrin is 95. He's very excited to be
That's
going
a
back
very
to.
good Donald Trump impersonation, by the
Oh,
way.
thank you, man. You know,
Yeah.
in my radio years, it was 2015, and I was working at a station when he announced that he was running, and I would do it, and they're like, "Hey, that's good, man. Do it on the air," and I'm like, "It's not fun for me."
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
A
kind of dreading,
little
and then
anxiety inducing, but
exactly, man.
nonetheless.
I'm like, it hurts too much. What are you gonna do? All right, yeah. Kari's excited for this, and again, give me the title again for the book.
Traveling to Mars.
Traveling to Mars. Excellent, man. Is it Blaze or Ablaze?
Ablaze.
Ablaze. Excellent.
A Blaze. Yep.
Yes. All right, cool. That's great. No, wonderful, man. And like you said, it's only a couple weeks away.
Yep.
Fantastic. That's great. Geez, man, as always, I'm thrilled with what you're doing and excited for what's coming up. Second Coming next year?
Yeah, probably I'm thinking probably May or June 2025.
Okay. All right. And then announcements to come from the big two at all, or?
Well, just the one I spoiled already. That's the only one I have lined up.
Repeating, that's Wonder Woman Golden Age,
yeah,
by Mike Allred and Mark Russell and Laura Allred, of course. Coming soon from DC Comics. All right, there you go. Now Clark's going to be really mad. Why'd you do that? You really underlined it, John.
Over there, I'm the pariah.
Is any of your future state stuff going to like find its way into, or all right, again, making the best of what was, a weird 5G situation with, the books that did come out? I don't even know how future state is really regarded editorially. From a story standpoint.
They never talk about it. I see it repackaged in things, but I just kind of approach it. It's like, well, this is 3 issues that just sort of exist, like existed at one point, and they're just sort of forgotten about. But weirdly, Superman Space Age came out of a 5G project, and then when 5G was sort of scrapped, it sort of morphed into what became Superman Space Age. But originally, it was going to be the 2G Superman. So they're going to have like the 2G Superman taking place in the 1960s, and the 5G was going to be the new Superman. And I was going to write the 2G. But when that all got sort of thrown out, they didn't want to throw out the project. They just had to rebrand it as something other than 2G.
I understand. When Batman 66 was coming out, the comic, I'm like, man, I really wish they'd do like George Reeves era Superman, and it sounds like that's kind of what you were, possibly going to play with.
Yeah, that would be great. They should do one that's like an adaptation or
sure.
Sort of an exploration of like that era of Superman, and him just like beating up wise talking gangsters, and yeah.
Like a super powered Mo of the Three Stooges, just clunking gangsters' heads. Yes, and of course, standing with the bullets bouncing off his chest.
Yeah, laughing at the bullets.
Yeah, have you ever seen Robert Wool's bit about that, where they made it look black and white, and he was Superman, and of course the bullets are bouncing off him. He goes, then God forbid they throw the gun at him, and then he's ducking. Whoa, what are you doing? Hey.
Yeah, he just didn't want messing up his hair.
Probably. Have you seen any of those crazy YouTube AI trailers that they try to make retro looking, like they would do big movie like the Avengers if it was set in the 50s, Batman if it was set in the 50s?
Yeah, I find AI kind of depressing. I
respect that,
but no, I haven't. People aren't sending me those, thank God.
Well, that's cool.
And if people aren't sending it to me, I'm probably not seeing it.
I did see one where they made the animated AI figure look like George Reeves.
Oh wow!
And exactly. I mean, that's the thing, man. It's like, because believe me, I feel the same way, and I don't want to see anyone lose their jobs to AI. And I mean, I grew up with Fred Astaire dancing with the vacuum cleaner commercial, and all of a sudden John Wayne is selling beer and things like that, which always pissed me off. So I get it, but I can't deny when I was like, oh look, it's George Reeves. It looked a lot better than the Flash.
I will say that when I see the AI stuff, a lot of it, looks visually dazzling. It's like, wow, this looks like. But the thing that they don't seem capable of doing with AI is weaving it together into some sort of narrative that, like, okay, I can see where this is going as a story, which is why they tend to do things like trailers. It's just like a series of individual images unconnected to any sort of narrative or story, because you can do that with AI. But if the minute you try to make it seem like, oh, well, this is part of a narrative structure that's going somewhere, and it's got some sort of point or it has a theme, it just melts.
I'm with you.
Doesn't seem to be capable of doing that.
I hear you, man. Well, and also, again, I think I've yet to see, and maybe it will evolve into better story ideas. But like I said this to Brian Azzarello about his Jim Lee Superman story, where it was kind of a crisis of faith, and I'm like, AI is not going to like pick that out of like, give me a good Superman story, give me an interesting Superman. And I feel that way about your writing, man. I think you find wrinkles of these characters that absolutely are consistent to who they are, but you put them, especially with your alternate universe ones, you put them in different situations, but it's still the man or the woman.
Yeah, I feel like AI is nowhere near being able to replace quality writing. What I fear from it is that it will replace it anyway, where it'll,
sure,
because it's like, yeah, maybe garbage, but it's way cheaper than paying somebody to write something good. And so if you're a corporate executive and you have a choice between, making something that is half as good, but for 0% of the cost, you're probably the X's and O's, the dollars and cents sort of, it's like the smart decision is probably to make the thing that's half as good.
Well, but I do think as well that and it is an extra burden on the creative people. But I do think with creator-owned comics and crowdfunding that you can take your audience with you. And thankfully, I mean, do you see with your AWA stuff or your AHOY stuff, do you see a tick up since you've been doing the DC and Marvel work?
It's hard to say because I started doing the DC and Marvel stuff and then went to these other places. But I think what does work for these smaller publishers or these publishers that are doing more genre, specific stories, is people buying things just because they like the premise, which is good. Because when you're working for Big Two, it's like you get readers who, it's like, well, I bought your Fantastic Four comics, I like the Fantastic Four, or I bought your DC comic because I'm a fan of the Justice League, and I'm just trying to get caught up in all the lore. But when you're working for creator-owned titles, independent publishers, people just buy it for its own merit, and so people, I think, or they buy it because they thought it was a really interesting idea for a story, and you're more likely to get those people to stick around to the end and find you at a convention and have you sign it and talk about it than you are people who are just fans of this character you happen to write 3 or 4 issues for.
Sure. Well, even what we've gotten in the chat and everything, I think proves that. So that's great. That's excellent, man. Well, and are you watching Superman and Lois? Just out of curiosity, as a Superman writer?
No, I don't watch a lot of TV. I watch a lot of movies. I'm sort of a cinephile, but I watch very little TV. I did watch The Penguin.
What'd you think of The Penguin?
I loved it. I feel like my 2 favorite TV shows this year, which is probably like out of four that I actually watched. But my 2 favorite were The Penguin and Inside Number 9, which is sort of a twist-heavy sort of show on BritBox.
Oh,
but yeah.
No, I was just gonna say I'm kicking myself that I canceled my BritBox and Acorn subscriptions because I really do love British TV. So I'm that and missing, although I hear mixed things. Jason Isaacs playing Cary Grant in that miniseries, and I would have loved that.
Oh, that looks like it could be good too. Yeah, well, if you ever get your subscription back, I would recommend binging all 9 seasons of Inside Number 9.
Okay,
and
sci-fi stuff,
it's some of it's sci-fi. The genre kind of changes, but the through line is that it stars these two actors who write it, and there's a big twist at the end. The closest sort of analog would, I think, be the short stories of Saki or O. Henry. They feel like that, where you know a twist is coming, but I've never seen a show that relies that much on like twists and yet pulls them off genuinely surprisingly, like so consistently.
Okay. Well, you know, sometimes those BritBox shows do find their way on other platforms eventually too.
And they're very funny too. Like usually there's like some really good humor in them too. So I highly recommend it.
Cool, man. Well, again, everybody, keep watching for the next issue of X Factor coming up. And again, this week we wrapped up Batman Dark Age, and trade will be coming in March. So look forward to that. And My Bad number 5 also wrapping up, and trade to be coming very soon from AHOY. Excellent, man. As always, really cool stuff. And again, Trip to Mars?
Traveling to Mars.
Traveling to Mars. Sorry,
yeah.
I apologize. Of Blaze Comics, and that trade is coming out in a couple of weeks. So I want to make sure I get the product list proper for you, Mark, because you're always nice to come back. The least I can do is
I'll come back anytime.
Thanks, brother. Well, that means a lot, man. Truly, I appreciate it. Everybody, thanks a lot for watching. Tomorrow night is Tyson Jake Paul.
Oh, that's right.
I was gonna do a mess around show with Mitch and Wayne and Franco and talk about TV and do a TV catch up. But I don't know, man. I kind of want to watch whatever the hell that spectacle is going to be. I don't know.
It'll probably be over pretty quickly, so you'll have more the rest of the evening to spend doing other things.
All right, so 9:05, everybody.
Yeah, exactly. The one guy I hope is watching it, assuming he's still alive. He might not be, in which case I apologize. Michael Spinks. Michael
Spinks is still alive. Don't worry.
Oh, good.
Sadly, Leon passed away, but Michael is still with us.
Yeah. I hope he's got the popcorn ready.
I listen. I love Michael Spinks. That's you've opened a can of worms of boxing for me. But I had good relationships with both the Spinks brothers when I was writing boxing. So
that's great.
Hilarious. All right, thanks a lot for watching, everybody. We'll see if I have a show tomorrow or not. If not, Joe Casey's joining us next Monday to do a catch up, and we'll catch up in Joe's world, and we'll have a lot of other great stuff coming next week on Word Balloon. Until then, stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.